What's up, everyone? Lance Hedrick here, and we've got a lot to talk about in this video. So, as some of you probably saw, I posted a video the other day, which was kind of a culmination of some testing I've been doing somewhat recently, but it's been really the culmination of years of, experience. I don't know what else to say about it. But just to kind of go back some years back, I really realized how much better I thought bigger doses in espresso tasted. 22, 23, 24, up to even 26 grams of coffee in those big VST and Pullman baskets that they have available for sale at like the 25 to 27 gram. And in fact, the most memorable shot of espresso that I had, now, of course, if I tasted it today, maybe I wouldn't have the same reaction. But even still, the most memorable espresso I had at one moment was in 2017 at a coffee shop in Nashville called Sump. And it was pulled by a guy named Tanner who had been in the coffee industry over a decade at that point and was really intense about his coffee. He tried over 200 different water recipes to settle on the right one for his EK shots that he was serving in shop, and really wanted to serve me this Costa Rica Las Lajas that he had dialed in. And he had a 26 gram shot, and it was 26 grams in, 72 or so out. And it was sublime. I'd never tasted espresso like that before in my life. And this wasn't some, just really nicely dialed espresso. It was otherworldly. It was the God shot that people, kind of look for. Now, of course, would I prefer it as much today? I don't know. But the point stands that was kind of when I really became super obsessed with this idea of big shots. But it's not really something I like to push on other people. I hadn't put any thought or experimentation towards understanding if there was anything more to it than just more coffee equals more good. So I never really pushed that because that's kind of a big amount of waste. Not necessarily waste if you're enjoying it, I guess, but if you're dialing in 26 gram shots, 2 shots of dialing in is 52 grams, whereas 2 shots of dialing in 18 gram shot is 36. That's a 16 gram differential on wasted coffee. So I never really pushed that idea. But over the years, as I've been, trying all this equipment that my lovely Patreon has allowed me to get my hands on, I've noticed that I tend to prefer smaller diameter espresso machines. And I wasn't 100% confident as to why that might be. So I just continued to enjoy them. I was really obsessed with the La San Marco group that was on the ACS Vostok and Nuri. And I would talk about how I really love that group head. And it's because, you'd put 22 grams in one of their baskets, which here's an ACS basket right here. You can toss 22 grams in that. And I was pulling just dreamy shots. It was a lot of coffee, but they were fantastic. And the same can be said about, the Nuri as well as, in all these other coffee machines. I also was a big proponent of the 54 group head on these like Sage machines when people were complaining about it with Dal Corte Mini and things like that, because I always found they made stellar shots. And then came, honestly, the thing that really made me decide, all right, I really need to look into this, is when I was first getting obsessed with my Cremina, but then even more so is when I got this Streetman right here. I essentially couldn't pull a bad shot with it, even if it was a 10-second shot or a 50-second shot. All the shots tasted really nice, and I was consistently dosing about 16 grams in. And with direct lever, of course, you have some forgiveness, so to speak. And so once I was any basket I put in there, whether it had a mesh at the bottom or nothing, or it was the high flow basket or whatever you want, I was getting fantastic shots. And I was like, all right, there's something more to this. And so then I remember I actually had a talk with Doug Weber when we were in Denmark, and he was chatting with me about this idea of aspect ratio. And we were talking about, if everything were to match, hypothetically things would run the same way. So anyway, I started doing the testing. The first test I did was with the step down basket, which is sitting around here somewhere. But that's very expensive and silly, and people don't need to buy that. But I wanted to test a 20 gram dose in that versus a 20 gram dose in a normal basket. I created some profiles on the Decent so that they'd have same fill rates until pressure kicked in, and pulled a lot of data with that. And what I found was the 20 gram shot with the smaller diameter yielded higher extractions, gave me better tasting cups, and had a higher stability. It was more consistent. And so then, of course, I was like, all right, well, let's match other aspects. And so the most recent one was based off of depth. So essentially, all I did is I took, I had a list of doses I wanted to do in the 58 millimeter. I wanted to do a 17.5 gram dose in the 58 millimeter, because the majority of doses that people do at home are 17 to 18. And then, well, I say a list. And then I had one dose I wanted to do in the 49, which was 20 grams, because I absolutely adore 20-gram shots in my 49 millimeter baskets. So then I just did some maths in order to get what the equivalent depth would be in the other without having to measure. My hypothesis was I shouldn't have to change grind size, and I wasn't going to change grind size. So the density of the coffee should be the same. So I don't need to measure anything except for the width to depth ratio. And then I can multiply that, the difference between the two baskets, by the dose. Bada bing, bada boom. I have same depth. So that's essentially what I did. Now, in the testing, it showed that there was no significant difference at all. There was no statistically significant difference between pulling the same depth shot in a 49 millimeter basket versus a 58 millimeter basket. So if I have 12.5 grams in my 49 and I have 17.5 grams in my 58, that was the same shot for all intents and purposes, based off taste, based off time, based off of extraction yield and TDS. All of those things were roughly the same. I did loads of tasting and everything else, and I'm confident enough to say I don't think people could, double blind tell them apart consistently. Maybe if you had, how espresso is volatile, maybe one shot, the 58s for some reason pulled a little bit with more homogeneity versus the 49, then maybe you tell the difference. But if you pull enough shots and you collect enough taste data, I'm confident that no one's going to be able to tell those differences. Same thing happened with the 20 gram in the 49, the 28.1 gram in the 58. No significant difference, which was what I was hypothesizing. And it's because I remember when I do 16 gram doses on the 49, it was reminiscent of how well I could get espresso to come out at 22, 23 grams in a 58, but just with a lot less coffee. Now, of course, doing 20 grams in a 49 forces you to do 28 in a 58, and that's ridiculous. But that was kind of the impetus for this whole experiment. Now, I do want to say I will attend to the chat here in a second. Let me take a sip of this decaf, and I'm going to pull a shot, of course, but I wanted a little decaf, and then I'll have a caffeinated shot. Now, I do want to speak briefly about my methodology and approach to that testing, because there were lots of questions about it. I don't want to bore on in the little short attention span main YouTube channel I have, even though I still do like 30, 40-minute videos there. I was like, this will be better for unfiltered. So I took a Linea Micra and a Decent. Now, a lot of people may say those are different machines. That's no good. The fact of the matter is, I could have done this. I could have done them both on the same machine and used this little gadget to step down to a 49. But this has a lot more headspace and would be a different temperature gradient, which would be a little bit more difficult to account for. So pulling the same shot on the same machine was going to be a near impossibility. So what I opted to do instead was I decided to dial in the Decent to mimic the Linea as well as possible. That, of course, is going to give some noise to the data, and that's why it's so impressive that there's no statistically significantly big difference there. There was some more variation in the shots on the Decent or the 49 millimeter, and some people have read that as, oh, the 58 must pull better, when in reality, it was simply a different machine, and that could account for the noise. But even still, even with the wider box plots there was no statistically significant difference. So even though it may look like that, it was only 6 shots per. So I did 6 shots at 12.5 with one coffee, 6 shots, 12.5 coffee, blah, 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 blah. So I opted to do 2 different machines and just replicate the profile using my skates and a pressure gauge and everything onto the Decent as on the Micra. And I found that gave me good results. And just so everyone does know, at the end of the test, I did go through and do a series of 358 and 349 just on the Micra using this step down. And it wasn't as big of a difference as I thought. It gave me essentially the same numbers that the Decent gave me. So I did double check on the same machine just to ensure. And with a repetition of 3 on each, redoing it, they were still essentially the same. So anyway, what I did there is I dialed in the coffee to where one of the 2 pulled well. I normally would just dial in the 49 millimeter because my hypothesis was that it should be the same grind size. With the same bed depth, the grind size should be the same. So I dialed in the 12.5 gram or the 49 millimeter. And then once I pulled a shot of that, I would oscillate and do a shot of the 58 on the same grind size. And I would just go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth the whole time. and we collected data that way: 1 1 1 1 1 1, and never changed the grind size the whole night. Well, until we switched coffees, of course. So we did 2 coffees, a washed Ethiopia and a washed Colombia. Some people ask, why don't you do X, Y, and Z coffees that we may drink at home? It's because there's a lot more noise in the data when you do naturals, when you do lower quality coffees, when you do really old coffees. There's a lot more variability that is introduced into the data collection, and that's something I don't want to deal with, especially since I was already using 2 separate machines. I did use the same basket, though, in the sense that they had the same hole geometry on the bottom, just the standard flow. I did talk to Sheldon at S Works, and the hole diameter on both is 0.25 millimeters. So I do have the high flow baskets as well, but I opted not to use those. Those are 0.2, and I wanted everything to be equal that I could, other than the diameter. So the whole spread, the whole diameter, the depth, the flow rate, the temperature, the pressure, everything identical. The recipe identical, except for as opposed to obviously the dose and the output, because it's based off ratio. Okay, so that is essentially how I approached it. And the conclusion, a lot of people are saying, well, what do we do with this conclusion? Do I need to go buy a step down? No, you don't need to buy a step down. If you watch the video and what you took away is 49 is what I need to get, that's not necessarily accurate. And I can understand how the thumbnail can be misleading with the thumbs down on 58. Reason I did that, and honestly what was going on in my mind, is I was trying to unseat 58 as the end-all be-all in what everyone puts as the goal, right? 58's on a pedestal, and people have their machine at home that might be a 51 DeLonghi or a 54 Breville, and they think, I need to upgrade someday to a 58. Oh, I just wish I had a 58 millimeter. I could get all the accessories. I could get better coffee. And they put this thing on some sort of pedestal of unreachability until they have enough money to get that. And that's what I was really trying to speak towards, is this isn't the best. In fact, a 49 is great. That was the 49 was more so supposed to represent everything but 58, and that I can understand that didn't come across the best way, but that was the kind of idea, is that 58's not mandatory, right? It doesn't make bad shots. You just have to use so much coffee for it to make the highest potential shots, in my opinion, as well as what the data kind of says to me, that yeah. So that was kind of the idea with that. Now, with 58 mils, obviously you make good espresso. People have been making great espresso with it for a long time. My whole argument is that you can have a higher threshold of Tasty Town than with a more shallow puck. And so unless you're willing to go over like 21 grams or so, you have quite a shallow puck. When you're under 20 grams, you're essentially the equivalent of like 13 or less grams on a 49 millimeter, which is it's a very small puck. Like, so people have this argument recently about, oh, more shallow is more evenness. You can't say that. Everything's to an extent, right? And you can play the thought experiment of extremes. Okay, so if I went to a 2-gram puck in here, would I have a more even extraction? Like, that you can't just say the more shallow the better. Same with V60s. The more shallow, the more even. So you would do a 4-gram V60? You wouldn't, right? That would be silly. There is an optimal depth that you shouldn't really go below. There's an optimal range of depth. And from both from my testing, from the scattering of numbers, the consistency of shots, what I definitely have noticed is that when you hit a certain bed depth, regardless of basket diameter, you start to get more consistent shots, and it unlocks a bit more flavor than you otherwise might not get. I have noticed with the more shallow the puck gets, the more bitter and acrid and astringent capability the puck has to give. Can you make a great 16-gram shot in a 58 millimeter basket? Of course you can. I'm not saying you cannot. This is not my data says this, so everything else is crap. That's never how I've been. That's not how I'm doing it. Same with like the blind shaker whole thing. People watched it and they're like, I need to buy a blind shaker. How else am I supposed to take from this video? You don't always have to be a consumer, right? You can watch the video and go, oh, WDT was worse than just tapping. Maybe I just don't need a WDT. And guess what? You're not spending any money doing that. Or you don't have a WDT. You were going to buy one. Now you don't have to. You can just tap, and it will do better than with WDT. Right? So that's what I'm trying to do with these videos, is never to push people to buy anything. You don't need the conversion. Like, you don't need to change things up, do all this stuff. If you want to implement it into your routine, just instead of underdosing, overdose a little bit, you know? And here's a little side tidbit. Whenever you're brewing espresso, a lot of people get worried about a screw indent in their puck. The only time you worry about a screw indent in your puck is if it happens before the shot is pulled. So if you lock in your portafilter and then you immediately pull it out while the puck is dry. If there's a screw indent, okay, you should lessen the dose a bit. If the screw indent is after your shot is done, that doesn't matter as long as it wasn't there before. At the end of the shot, the puck will expand when the solenoid releases, okay? And that's the only reason the puck indent gets there. There are actually videos with the transparent portafilters that show the puck expansion. It's nothing to worry about. Okay. I think I think I'll start looking at chat. Okay. Let's see if it'll load. Okay. All right. Oh, and also I should say, whenever you're matching depth, that advantage I spoke about in my first 58 to 49, where you get coarser grounds at a constant dose, doesn't come into play, obviously. Whenever you have a same dose, it's coarser on a 49 because it's a deeper puck. So 20 grams in a 49, 20 grams in a 58, you get the advantage of a coarser coarser grounds. So if you're matching doses, or if you're just above the higher depth in the 49, which could be 16 grams in a 49 versus 20 grams in a 58, the 16 grams in a 49 will be coarser, and that is optimal for a more even extraction and a higher potential tasty town. Okay, like we want those trips to tasty town. So let's ensure we understand that just because you have a 49 does not necessarily mean you will be grinding coarser. You can grind just as fine as a 58 depending on your dose. I was grinding very finely for my 12.5 gram doses on here. Of course, that was 17.5 on the 58 millimeter, but I was having to grind very finely. So just because a small diameter you have does not a fine, or I should say, does not a coarse grind size make. I don't know. Okay, now we'll look at these. Thoughts on quick ramp up lever shots, almost no pre-infusion, allowing for an even coarser grind on 49 millimeter baskets. I'm not sure I understand that, i.e. almost no in pre-infusion. Thoughts on quick ramp up lever shots. Oh, so you're talking about like a flare or something where there's no steam in pre-infusion. You're just ramping up quickly. So you're blasting the puck, allowing for an even coarser. Well, I don't think that super matters, actually. I don't think that's going to change too much because you're still going to have the fines migration. But yeah. And the other thing I wanted to say is I will say, regardless of depth, because of the width difference, puck prep is much less important. It's still important, don't get me wrong, but it's less disastrous if it goes askew in a 49 due to width than the 58. It's much easier due to how narrow that basket is. Of course, the deeper the bed, the less consequential bed puck prep becomes. The thinner the bed, the more consequential it becomes. But the idea is when you have such a teeny tiny little cutesy tootsy bed, it's a lot less of a worry. But even so, I mean, I always shake and dump and tamp. So for me, it's never one way or another. But I know some of you get obsessive. I do too. That was silly of me to say. I've been saying for years that smaller espresso baskets are easier to work with, and glad to see I'm not alone. On the other hand, I believe that for immersion, the shallower the bed depth, the better. For immersion, I can't really speak to that. I don't do much immersion, to be honest with you. Is this only people from the Discord? Yes, it is. Only from the Discord. What's up, Devin? This is unlisted. Yeah. 26 gram shots would kill me. Yeah, so that's the thing. That's one of the reasons, I had to downvote on the 58 is when you want to get one. You would be shocked how many coffee professionals have messaged me after this video telling me how stoked they were on this because over the years of being a barista, they have already independently discovered, as I have, how much better massive shots taste, like massive doses. I've had, honestly, a couple dozen of coffee professionals, many of whom I'm sure you know because they're well-known coffee pros, who are looking into getting conversion kits for their cafes because they want that depth. They want to be able to recreate that without all the coffee waste. And that's another thing to consider is right now we're having big issues if you've been following commodity coffee and just coffee in general on Wall Street and the world in general as regards coffee production, we're in a dire situation. And the less coffee we can consume as far as wasting and being extravagant with it, the better. And so another big thing is being able to use less coffee and even equaling your extractions would be an incredible thing. But if you could get the same coffee and get more consistency, then you're going to waste less. So all the ways you look at it, it seems to be that there is a superior kind of side to smaller diameter because you don't need to down dose. I'm sorry, you don't need to up dose. You can maintain the dose. You can not use any extra coffee, not use any less coffee, and you can get more consistent shots. But that's more of a cafe consideration because they're the ones going through tons and tons and tons of shots with tons of baristas who may waste a lot of shots on dialing in. And so it could be a massive help in the cafe world. So yeah, I've had a lot of people, even I will name one because he commented on the video, but Lex Winokur at Fried Hats, made a comment about let's get on the phone with Juan Marzocco ASAP. And it's because this is such a thing. I'm not the first to have noticed this, and I never claimed to be. That's why I brought up Mason Salisbury was before me, and there are people way before him. In fact, Matt Perger commented on my Instagram post about this, about triple Rizzy bangers coming back, and Chris DeFario, who's been in the coffee industry 30 years, said they've never left, kind of thing. It's this idea of these massive doses have been around for a long time. And that I've enjoyed them for a long time. I've always found I really enjoyed the higher doses, but in a cafe environment, that's not fiscally responsible to do 24-gram shots. Of course, Tanner did it at Sump, but he did what he wanted, and that was his MO. But anyway, let's continue. Does grinder quality matter more or less with smaller portafilters? Grinder quality always is going to matter a ton. But of course, the coarser you can go, the less it's going to matter, relatively speaking. Okay? The coarser you go, the better particle distribution gets, almost period. I can't say period because there are exceptions. But for the most part, the finer you go, the more your grinder quality really, really matters. The coarser you go, the less it matters. So speaking like that, incrementally, if you did like a 20-gram dose and a 49, and you normally do a 20-gram and a 58, the grinder quality could be a little less with the 49 technically, but it would be small, and I don't feel confident saying, oh, yeah, but logically. And no, people don't need step-down baskets. People don't need to buy all this other stuff. This is strictly a video of me producing content about a finding that I felt relevant and helpful potentially to twist arms of manufacturers to make more of this stuff readily available. And like I said in the original video, even Stefan Ribbe, who's the picky chemist of so many of us in this Discord, at least, and people who watch this video love his stuff, some of the highest quality light roasts you can get. And he uses a 47 millimeter DeLonghi machine. And the reason he uses that is he said he can cram 16 grams of coffee in there, and it gives him a much deeper puck than he could get otherwise in a 58 without like overdosing on coffee. So he has a decent espresso machine, and he is opting for a DeLonghi to get deeper pucks. That's how important it is to him. And people are loving his coffee, so they obviously align with his taste. And I thought that was a really funny thing that I was when I was chatting with him. Does a deeper bed benefit unimodal burr sets the same way as burrs with a wider distribution? Does a deeper bed benefit? So a deeper bed would benefit in the sense that you don't have to grind nearly as finely. So in a 58 millimeter, when you have a more unimodal burr set, less fines, you have to grind extra fine in order to get it to build pressure. Now, whenever you have a deeper bed, obviously you can go coarser. So that's going to help you not have to go as fine as possible. The finer you go, the more stringent particles can get loose, the more is going to get in your cup, maybe the more sediments. You might need to use like an Astrum 909 or a Wutman 5 paper filter or something to clean it up. Whereas the deeper your bed, here's the thing, the coffee puck in whatever brewing device you're using, whether it's pour over or not, the brewing puck, the bed of coffee is the most effective filtration unit in coffee. And so the more of a filter we can get, the more it's going to filter out the crap. Right? So, that was good, but that last sip was cold, and I don't like cold coffee. So let's brew espresso. Here, I'll answer a couple more questions first. So the S-Works step-down basket existed for a while. Any idea why Sheldon at S-Works created the step-down? Were they thinking similar thoughts to you and Doug Weber? Yes. So I can't speak to when he released the step-down, but I think he got a Streetman. Actually, I know he got a Streetman, and I think he really liked the shot. So I wouldn't be surprised if Sheldon was just doing something along those lines. Now I know that all the other mods that he did came after my first video on 58 versus 49. I think the step down was out before I made those videos. But as far as the spring for the step down and as far as all the conversion kits and all that stuff, that came out after my video. He's someone that I really like because he is always watching the content. He's always watching content, not just mine, but everybody's. And he is pivoting because he's a small business in order to bring things with high quality to the market that, a niche of people like. Now, of course, it's very expensive because he's doing things at the highest quality possible, like cutting baskets out of a single block of steel kind of thing. But I do appreciate that someone is out there doing it as quickly with as quick a turnaround as he is so that I can do these tests. So like, for instance, being able to do a 20 gram 49 millimeter shot with the same geometry basket as like a big basket, I was going to not be able to do that. But he quickly turned around and made these baskets so fast, it was kind of wild. So I'm very thankful for it. That doesn't mean you need to go buy them. But I remember bugging Lance in the comments to try to step down as I got one when Sheldon first made it and found easier dial in, a lot coarser grinds. Yeah, at the same dose, absolutely. When Sheldon really made it to allow filter focus grinders to make Spro. Potentially. Use the unimodal burrs better for espresso. I don't know what that means. What burrs should I get for light to medium roast espresso on Maser Phylos? I always recommend the I200D. Or SSP for light to medium. Probably the I200Ds. They're more flexible, I think, for getting into medium. Where's the point of diminishing returns of bed depth for Spro? Of many grams is 58 is a good minimum for negative. Okay, so essentially this question is asking what is your range for espresso? In the same way, for V60s for me, for a V60 which is what I mostly use, I find 15 to 22 grams to be kind of the ideal range. I normally just do 15. I don't really go over 18 because I just don't drink that much coffee. But I think you can get really great cups from about 15 to 22. I think you get good cups below and above that, but I think it kind of peaks at that 15 to 22 gram range. Now, there are people who find other ranges work better. I remember when early in my coffee career, I heard on a coffee podcast, someone said like the O2 is 25 to 40 grams. I've never gotten a good 25 and above. Well, that's not true. I've gotten good 25 grammers, but I've found that I can improve the taste even more. I like 22 and below. Anyway, with espresso at 58 millimeter, I have not tried over a 30 gram shot. But I can tell you this, 30 gram shots are absolutely incredible. Like, they're fantastic. So I don't know what the maximum would be in a 58, but I can tell you absolutely that 30 is fantastic. Now, the least for me is around 21 that I'll do. Now, 21 is kind of pushing it. Because I know I'll prefer bigger than 21, but it's so much freaking coffee, right? So, I would say my most typical shot is a 16 gram and a 49 millimeter, which is about a 22 or 22 and a half gram shot. It's not because it's the best tasting. It's because I like doing 15, 16 grams of coffee at a time, whether it's a pour over or espresso. If I was doing it for optimal taste, I'd probably do 18 to 20 grams in a 49 millimeter. Now, I've posted a chart on my YouTube, on my main YouTube's community page, that you can do all the conversions for that. So if you hear me say 18 grams in a 49, you can see what the exact bed depth is in a slew of different sizes. I did all the sizes I could think of, from like Flare Neo to Pro 2 to DeLonghi to Breville to Lilith's Weird 57. I have all of them on there, like 15 different options. So you can just say, oh, Lance said 18 grams on 49. What does that mean on mine, right? So hopefully that's a helpful resource. But yeah, so that would kind of be my range, I guess, for a 58, somewhere around 22-ish up to around 30, and then which is a big range. I think that you're probably getting ideal stuff on the upper end of that, at least in my experience. But that doesn't mean you need to. I just think it's better coffee when you're above 18 to 20. I like above that for sure. And this goes for clarity. This isn't like I like high clarity, I need a thinner puck for that. I don't think that's like, and in fact, what Stefan was even telling me from Picky Chemist is he finds the greatest clarity and the greatest expression of his coffees are with those really, really deep pucks. And I think a big part of that is because you are grinding coarser, so you're allowing for a better distribution in the coffee bed, and you're allowing for a higher filtration, which should give you a cleaner cup. But with dark roasts, coarser grounds also produce a lot more crema than if you go really fine. Go choke a shot and see how much crema you get. Go do like a 45-second shot and see how much crema you get versus a 20-second shot. So Um, what do you do? What dose do you like for 4 Okay, so I just kind of talked about that. So should we stop talking about the grams and talk about millimeters? Yeah, so that's a good question. The issue is with millimeters or grams, you have the issue of density. So if we did millimeters, well, I guess you could do millimeters because density wouldn't matter then. I'm sorry. Yeah, millimeters would be good, but you would have to like memorize. Yes, it would be good. It would be good because when I'm talking in grams, I'm talking about a very specific few coffees, right? So that being said, that being said, the transfer chart is for any coffee, right? If you take just one coffee, it doesn't matter what coffee, that chart works for it because you're going to use the same grind size for any of those because they're all the same bed depth. Because one coffee is going to grind the same and have the same density, right? But yes, I think millimeters would be a better way, though it might be a little bit more difficult. Or we could talk in terms of volume, right? Have we tried the Swartz convex baskets yet? Def takes the small diameter concept to the next level. So I have one, and I've not actually tried it. I bought one in my last order when I bought like $1,000 worth of freaking baskets. So this is what was being asked about. That's what's being asked about. So you tamp up here where it's still 58, and then you have kind of like a funky thing. And honestly, this probably be a really interesting shot. Probably be really interesting. It wouldn't be super even, as you can imagine, with the shower stream coming on top and how it's going to go through in weird ways, as opposed to it going straight down with straight wall basket. But yeah, I need to try it. I just haven't yet. A lot of people have asked, and honestly, I just want to knock a puck out and see what it looks like. But yeah, I've not tried it yet. I used to consistently do 18 and 58, and then always got better shots with 16 on a decent. Well, that's great, Brian. So here's the thing: all that I'm saying is based strictly on data, and then what I and the people I taste with have found taste preference wise, and then other coffee pros have corroborated this as well over the years, but not all coffee pros have. That's selective for me to even say that. And it doesn't like if you like 16 better, then do 16, right? Like that's the great thing about coffee. All I'm doing with these videos and what I do on YouTube is I try to find ways that can potentially help the majority improve their coffee. Not to go out and buy new things or whatever, but to potentially improve their coffee. And I post about that. And thankfully it does help lots of people. I get people all the time, thanking me. And there are already people who have updosed from my last video, and I've loved it. There are people who have bought these in-game machines and have gone back to their DeLonghi Stylosa and have actually taken it seriously with a nice grinder, and their minds are blown because they never gave the DeLonghi a chance, and they had a crap grinder with it. Then when they upgraded to their nice machine, they never went back to the DeLonghi to see how it was. It just went to storage, or it went to their in-laws, or whatever it did. And so people have been taking their nice grinders to these cheaper machines that heat water well enough. You don't need perfect thermal stability. They get to a proper pressure. You don't need perfect pressure throughout. And they're pulling out insanely good shots. You saw James Hoffman with his little 60-pound Aldi machine. He used a Zerno, and he got something he actually enjoyed out of it. The grinder is so very important. Then if you can optimize other things like basket size, like the geometry of the basket, the quality of your ingredients, it's good to go. All right, so now I am going to, maybe it's because I'm doing turbos. Even with turbos, I do even faster than turbos. Now my top shot are like these 10 to 13 second low contact shots on the decent. And the best ones are 20-gram pucks on a 49 millimeter. The best ones, without question. And in fact, I showed in my video a DM I sent to Chris Hendon that my biggest issue with his turbo shot paper is the dose. I said, your dose of 15 grams, I say, and I posted the DM actually on the video because I thought it was really funny. But also, I just wanted to show that I'm not trying to, like, my point of posting that DM in the video was actually to show that I'm not trying to make a new fad. This is not me being like, oh, I've got a new fad. It was more of this is something that I've been thinking about a long time. And it's a natural evolution to where I'm at now. And so I told Hendon in it, because he said, why don't you like the turbo shots? And I said, I suspect it's the dose. With such a small dose, I always get a harshness, a bitterness that I don't like. It's always lemon sharp in its acidity presentation. I really don't like it. And so I started doing 20-gram and above turbo shots, and I was liking those a lot more. Wait till you do a 28-gram turbo shot. But anyway, So yeah, I mean, but again, you may prefer 16 grams. I had other people that have done coffee a long time and they like 16 grams, like Maxwell Mooney, who's out in he's now coffee consulting, but he's been in coffee for longer than I have, like 12, 14 years, something like that. And he loves low dose shots, and that's fine. There are people around the world also, this is shocking to people, but as much as I hate bitterness in coffee, there are people in the world who look for bitterness in all aspects of food. Bitterness is not a bad word a priori. So a lot of times I'm pushing away from bitterness and how I'm teaching. And there may be some of you that like bitterness. I'm not saying you do, Brian, or whomever asked that question, or if other people like it. But my point is that taste is varied around the world heavily. Some people like licorice, for instance. I can't stand it. Some people like drying, like a more drying wine or something like that, right? There's all these different things that people enjoy that isn't shared by everybody. So okay. Now I am going to pull a shot. I've been teasing it, but now it's time. So the sweet people at Saka, so I bought Saka. Just a quick little side thing before we get back into this. Saka is an Italian, a Napoli brand that roasts coffee. They've been around for over 35 years. I heard about them from a fellow coffee enthusiast, Ryan Lee, who's like a lever daddy out in the Northeast of the United States. He has a prolific lever espresso machine collection and works on them all, and I go to him often for recommendations. But anyway, he loves this brand called Saka and talks about Saka shots and stuff. And so I was like, I'm going to buy some Saka. I'm in Europe. I'm going to buy some. So I bought a few different varieties, and one of them I really genuinely, unironically, greatly enjoyed. And that was the Crema Bar or something. This one, Crema Bar. So I was making this video on Italian Espresso. I used this in it without telling the company. They don't know me from John Doe. I mean, they're just doing their thing out in Italy. And then I post a video and they get a ton of orders and they were like, what the heck? They got so excited. They sent me videos of them doing quality control because they wanted me to know that they were not going to let down my recommendation of them, which kind of made me feel, I was like, oh, that's so sweet. But they sent me like photos of them smiling at a table, like doing quality control, measuring the density, the moisture content of the coffee, doing cuppings, pulling it as espresso as they were fulfilling these orders. And I was like, I love that. That was so sweet. And then they sent me a care package. They sent me 2 more bags of the coffee that I really like from them. Unironically, this is like the best dark roast I've had for me. I absolutely adore it. And they sent me, they dabble in specialties. So they sent me a lot of other coffees. So I thought that was really sweet. I got home today to that, or last night, I should say. And they sent me this cute little celebration, thick-walled little espresso cup. So I'm going to pull it into that. Anyway, little note of appreciation. I love, and they're a small little business. It's just, I like it. Kind of like with Bruda. When I made the video on Bruda, he had no idea what was going to happen, and a lot of you all showed up, placed orders for that awesome lever machine with the Cafe Lot robot basket, and he was overwhelmed, and it was awesome. I love when it's a small company. That the humble small companies are always fun. They're fun. All right, let me clean this out. I don't even know what grind size to put this on. I've been pulling soup on this grinder. Well, I've been mostly doing that on the Weber, actually. Weber with ULFs for my little like 10, 15 second shots. Oh my gosh. It has been dummy good. All right. Oh, this is okay. I gotta unplug the Weber and plug back into Cafetech. I don't want ULFs on my Dark Spro. Okay. All right, we're gonna guess right about here. Let's dump the coffee in. All right. If reduced density at the edge of the basket is the reason for increased extraction yield after blind shaking, could any other solution producing the same density distribution work as well? A curved putt screen. I would be sussed out by a curved putt screen personally. I think that is going to be. I don't think that's going to work. People have also said, different base tampers. I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure, to be honest with you. I've not cared enough to put too much thought into it because the blind shaker is so easy and it works. That I just haven't really thought about it. And this is why I say maybe Sheldon made the step down after he got a Swarks. He made a funnel just for the Streetman. So he's got to have a Streetman in order to make a funnel that fits it perfectly, that clicks into place. He makes stuff for a very niche audience, I tell you what. All right. Now, where's my tamper, dadgummit? There's one at least. Okay, no moisture. No whammies, no whammies. Ooh, I have the smaller basket in, and I tried to overdose it. It's all right. We're gonna force this in there. I forced 16 grams in something that should only hold about 15. All right, it's gonna work. That's gonna hug that screen, but you know what? Don't care. Oh yeah, it's hugging it. All right, let's get this bad boy going. Y'all can see that good enough. All right, we're gonna go up nice and slow. Just make sure I get that water chamber filled. Just get the first. Oh, it's maybe a little fine. I'm gonna do a bloomer. I'm just gonna let it bloom. When, if ever, do you expect to see commercial machines change from 58? You know, I don't think anytime soon, because with any change, it takes these companies forever. Like, for instance, Lumber Zoka will never do it because they are reticent to change. They are allergic to it. Come on, Daddy. I went a little coarser, but obviously not coarse enough. Dadgummit. We'll go up to like 10 bar. Don't break. Go up to 11 bar probably. Oh, yeah, there we go. We count it to a stream. It's going to be a long shot, but we're going to pull it a Rizzy banger. It'll be fine. I don't feel like pulling another one. Okay, little Rizzy. That's a nice little Rizzy. Oh, that is sludge, my friends. Let's get the rest out just real quick. Oh, my Lanta. Let's see if y'all can see that. Not really. There you go. It honestly doesn't even feel like liquid on my tongue. It's dark chocolate. It's like toasted marshmallow. Genuinely, it's like a burnt marshmallow. It's like honestly, those are the two big notes in this, and I love it. Okay, let's get all the rest of the water out. I pulled a Rizzy. That was probably 15 grams in, like 18 grams out. It was like a 1-to-1. Oh, yeah. Nice. Okay. All right. Ooh, that aftertaste is really nice. All right, let's see. Thoughts about tapered baskets? Did the increased water pot depth may compensate cons of not ideal water flow? Maybe. I don't know. I just haven't tested it, so I don't like commenting on things I haven't had even a little testing on. Do you think we'll see more affordable 49 millimeter step down baskets soon? They're not easy to make. That's the issue. The way Sheldon makes them is pretty difficult. There may be another solution that someone comes up with, but Sheldon's kind of blazing the trail right now. But probably, let's be honest. I have a 30-gram unifilter, but would love options for smaller dose with more depth. Yeah, absolutely. Isn't the headspace on that step down basket huge? Does that have a negative impact on the shot? Yes, it is huge. That's why he does the little spring thing. But yeah, so it is a big headspace. There's no ands, ifs, or buts like it is. You could stack mesh screens, which I've done that for funsies before. But yes, and it affects mostly, it affects body quite a bit, but it still tastes good. Headspace you want to limit as much as possible. Headspace you want to limit. Finally got my Canal Hummingbird portafilter after a year wait. Now there's step down filters to look out for. I can't keep up. Well, no. So the Canal portafilter is great. It's less about the portafilter you need to worry about. Like, because this is the step down basket and it fits in here. I may have to switch the spring out. No, there it goes. So step down fits in it just fine. There's a Canal with the step down. One of the issues is doesn't want to fit in the decent, so I've dremeled off part of the front, but it does now. Yeah, so that's a step down in a Canal. Did you see the new hybrid from Wug? Yeah, I did. I wish he actually knew how to design burrs, because I think it's overkill having a fully designed cone and a fully designed flat, but I'm probably going to get it. Okay. Does headspace matter for body texture on direct levers such as flare? There is no headspace on a flare. When you pour water in, it's immediately on top of the puck. So that's as little headspace as you can get. Um, any preferences of 3 options that source boosters for converting 49 for the flare 58? Fourth option doesn't exist. Yeah, you can do the. I've pulled shots with this. I've done this with it. Easy. But I think it is a little annoying with the lever handle, obviously, in the way, and 2 handles coming out. So you could do the other one. That one just had a workflow I didn't like as much, right? This one just has an easier workflow because it's a portafilter and a portafilter. So it's like, honestly, what you could do is if you end up getting it, you can lock it in as tight as possible, and then you can unscrew these and take the handle completely off, and then this is just part of the group head. That way it heats up with the group head. You never really have to take it out, and then you're just locking in a portafilter. So easy enough. Now the thing is manufacturers could switch group head sizes so freaking easily. It's not even funny. Like they don't have to change anything in the machine, just the exit, like just the dispersion disc and a couple little things here and there, but it's not a big deal at all. Like Sheldon's literally made changes for all La Marzocco's with one fix. Like you can switch out your La Marzocco. I'm thinking about doing it to my Micra for funsies, but I've already done it to my Decent, which is back here. So this now accepts a 49 millimeter. Like it's fucking. Oh, I cursed. Sorry. It's incredible. Like it's awesome. Buying a Bambino and dimming it for Sprover. But does the temperature creep up at lower flow rates with that thermojet? Not to where you should worry about it. Just give it a just eat it and don't think about it. Eat it and don't think about it. 25 to 40 is wild. Yeah, it is. And then, so you think the 40 millimeter from the Flare Neo can benefit from this, or do you think it's too small or something like that? No, you can get great shots from the Flare Neo. Absolutely great. Thoughts on the Sworks Design Cyclone Diffuser? I've seen it. I've not actually thought about it critically. Like what are the impacts of this? I've not really thought about it. Sorry, slightly off topic. You talk about how Reddit trolls don't trust you, but you still buy everything to be unbiased. If Reddit wouldn't trust you either way, but we do, why not accept the free things? It's a great question. And it's because it's not just Reddit trolls, right? There is Hoffman set a precedent that, and now I feel obligated to now fulfill. So even though in other Reddit worlds, or Reddit, other than YouTube worlds, people are receiving free things for review all the time, there's now an almost unspoken expectation for you to kind of buy everything to be unbiased, even though that is by definition impossible. There's going to be bias regardless of how much you buy. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It also makes things easier because there are times I've gotten things free in the past and I gave it away and it upset the manufacturer. And I won't name names, but I give away everything, right? For the most part, I give most everything away. As you can imagine, I spend a lot of money on machines, and I spend a lot on Ugo, and I spend a lot on taxes, and I spend a lot on a lot of things. And there have been times in the past where when I did receive free things, I would give them away to Patreon or something, and the manufacturer would get mad that I gave it away. And so now, when I buy it, ain't nobody getting mad because it's mine. It was just, I don't know, just it is what it is. Breville basket versus ACS, same quality. The cut of the basket of the Breville is like I've said many times, incredible. And then ACS, I don't actually know who makes them. It actually doesn't. It seems fine. It's like more matte than shiny, like the Breville is, but I don't think that really means anything. The Breville baskets are fine. Did you already talk about the WUG DR Ember? Yeah, briefly. What does it mean in taste clarity? What is the opposite? Also complex versus funky. No, those are great questions. So clarity. This is something that's thrown around quite a bit and is kind of like a measure of how much of an aficionado you are. I love clarity. That does not mean you have to like clarity to like good coffee, right? You could despise clarity and want just chocolate bombs. I don't give a crud. But there is kind of this weird aura around the word clarity of you should only like high clarity coffee because light roast is where it's at. If there's a hint of roast taint, I don't want it. That you scum. Um, Clarity, the way that people describe clarity is referring to the most famous term is flavor separation. So, what people are talking about with that is being able to delineate between flavors that are on your palate. So, let's say that you have. Um, let's say that you go to a restaurant, to a really nice like Michelin star restaurant, and they give you a dish that is pretty overwhelming to the eye. There's a lot going on. They've plated it in a way with like a little drizzle of sauce here. They have like a fruit here. They have like a flower here. Oh, blah 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 blah. And they give you instructions on how to eat it. And so you kind of combine everything in a certain way, and you put it in your mouth. But when you bite into it, you are able to taste each individual ingredient while also noticing how they're playing off of one another, as opposed to some sort of cheap meal that maybe has all the flavors blended together and you're like, something's in this, I don't really know what, but it's like, it's salty, maybe there's some garlic in it, I don't know, it tastes good, the texture's nice. So it's that idea of being able to be like, oh yeah, I taste the mandarin, oh yep, I taste the rose, yes, I taste the duck, oh yeah, I taste that the way that you cooked the duck in whatever brine, whatever it might be. So it's the idea of being able to call out these different flavors on your palate because it has been roasted to a certain degree and it's been extracted to a certain degree that allows for a kind of more robust laying out of their ingredients on your palate. So you have this idea of flavor separation that would be kind of like that. That would be clarity. But in addition to that, you also have this idea of like, I think people like kind of convoluted a bit, and people think with clarity they think brightness, and so if they have the lack of flavor, they say it's clarity, which isn't necessarily true. Clarity is kind of going towards this idea of being able to really distinguish the flavor characteristics. And then you also have this word that username Shotwell kind of has been popularizing in an EAF called fidelity, which I go over in a How to Taste Coffee video a few years ago. But that's how true to the origin kind of note it is. So if you have a coffee that people keep describing as blueberry, it's like how high fidelity is it towards this kind of blueberry idea, right? So like if you have a natural Ethiopia that is historically blueberry, how much is it hitting that kind of blueberry intensity, right? But yeah, clarity is an interesting one. And I think it's just because like I think the reason it gets so popular is when people get really into a hobby, they really want to dissect a drink and they want complexity to overtake everything, which is fair, and I love that as well. And so they want something that is going to reflect that desire to really pour over an object. And so in this case, coffee being the hobby, the passion, the fuel, that is what they want, is to sit down and really be able to dissect the drink and get as many flavor memories as possible as they're sipping it. Kind of like people doing wine or people doing whiskey. They want to be able to really pour over it. Like I got really into bourbon years back, and my dad really enjoys nice bourbon, but he wants caramels, he wants toffee, he wants butterscotch, he wants sweetness, right? Whereas I was someone that really enjoyed the yeast manipulation that Four Roses was doing. I would get their limited editions where they were taking, their different recipes and their different yeast manipulations and, high rye, low rye, all this different stuff. And I was looking for their florals. I was looking for their fruits. I was looking for all these different presentations that I could sit and really chew over in my mouth. I was looking for that complexity. I was looking for clarity, even though some may be more blended. So the opposite of clarity would be something like blended, where you sip it like if you go to a restaurant and they give you this insane dish that looks like the Michelin star one we talked about before, but when you take the bite, it all kind of blends together like that kind of cheaper meal, right? It kind of it's you get like a fruity sweetness, you get kind of like a florality about it, but it's kind of just all drab on your tongue. Not drab, not like negative, because blendy can be great for some things, but it's kind of like blended together like a blender, right? When you have beautiful things and you want them all separate, you kind of toss them in a blender, you can kind of taste them all, but they're kind of blended together, right? um Any tips to brew ultralight washed Ethiopia, the kilo chel for substance, and pour over to match decent extraction without having a too long extraction astringency? That's very difficult because his coffees, when you roast that light, it kind of chokes the drawdown when they're super 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 light. I would recommend. Oh man, it's really difficult. I mean, he goes quite coarse, and he doesn't go. I don't remember the temperature he goes. I would probably just replicate what he's doing because he brews it all the time. But honestly, it's pretty difficult because Ethiopians are going to produce a lot of fines. It's really light, so it's going to want to draw down slowly, and so it's going to be prime target for choking. But maybe really chill AeroPress would be helpful. I've not tried Sparrow. Full 19 grams and 49 with blooming, an insane flow rate, 0.5 to 10 seconds to 35 grams. It tastes amazing with great coffee. There you go. I love it. Don't trash my beloved licorice. See, there you go. See, I don't like star anise. I can taste it in bourbons and whatnot, and even in coffee sometimes, and licorice and things like that. And I'm not a fan. Do you already try any traditional Portuguese coffee brands like Delta or Cacao? What are your thoughts about it? Oh, I absolutely have. I don't really enjoy them. I've actually had them in a couple of videos actually. Does a deeper bed offset the decrease in head space? I don't know what that means. The decrease in relative to what? Can you explain what features of grinders contribute to them being more or less suited for light roast? Really the only time you can say this with any type of confidence is with cone burrs and hand grinders. When you have less pre-breakers on a cone burr, it's less suited for light roast. When you have more, it's more suited. When you get into flats, that it's so much more down to personal preference. You can have things that are geared towards dark roast, but there are people who love it with light roast. I have found that the Shuriken LM burrs are great for dark roast, and those are for light medium. So when it comes to that, it's mostly just based off of fines production and capability for espresso, and people just slap labels on them. There are sometimes more consistency between it, but let's see. Does Swark have any plans to make 49 millimeter group head conversion for other machines soon? I think probably. I don't see why they wouldn't, especially after I make a different one. But if you find UL hollow, instead of cranking the temp for higher extraction, concentrate brew by using more coffee or less water, than use less agitation. I don't know what that's about. The modified group heads. I know you ask people not to upgrade, but Micro 49 is fire. I upgraded to an in-game grinder recently. This makes just as much difference. Oh, heck yeah. So people who didn't hear that, this guy upgraded his Micro group head to the 49 millimeter from Swarks, which is incredible quality, honestly. But he's saying it's making just as much of a difference to his espresso as upgrading to an in-game grinder, which is, I mean, that's awesome. Okay, cool. So I'm going to, I think, Four Roses LOL, Nico Whiskies, though. Four Roses, if you're saying LOL, then you have not had their small batch limited editions, okay? I was a massive bourbon junkie. I mean, I had the BTAC all the way. I've had BTAC all the way back to like 06. My favorite bourbon of all time is the 2006 George T. Stagg. I've had, I mean, honestly, it gets difficult because unless you really know bourbon, the things I can name are not really as impressive as if you know bourbon. But I mean, my favorites were Four Roses Small Batch Limited Editions, and I had them all the way back to the 09 Marriage. I went through 4 bottles of the 2012 Four Roses, which was the best whiskey in the world and one of my favorite whiskeys of all time. I had like 6 of the Al Young 2017 commemorative bottles. Those were quite nice. Not as good as the 2012, though. 2012 was like my favorite Four Roses, I think. However, the 125th was really nice as well. Yeah, if you're laughing at Four Roses, you've not had the good stuff. But anyway, yeah, that bar, not big whiskey. Okay, I know the RPM is not very relevant. If I had the option, what is your recommendation? I can't see the rest of that because that heart's in the way for SSP and P first. Okay, wait. I know that RPM is not very relevant, but if I had the option, what is your recommendation for S? Oh, and just toss it to an RPM and yeet. I don't really play with RPM too much, to be honest with you. There's too many other things to. There's too many other things. Mr. Tennessee, Arkansas, Kentucky. I'm from Tennessee. Yeah, from Tennessee originally, and lived in Arkansas, but never lived in Kentucky. But definitely did the Bourbon Trail. Okay, I think I talked enough about all this stuff. I feel like I've spoken to a lot of the potential concerns um, from the video. If there's anything I missed, let me know in the comments. But that was kind of the approach, was just to, or in the hopeful, what you would be gleaning from the video is this idea that, a bigger dose, a bigger depth is going to give you a bigger, margin of error. It's going to open up new flavors that you potentially are missing out. And that shouldn't be a difficult concept to grasp. You can obviously disagree with the range being where I say it is, but you can't really disagree with the concept that there's a certain depth where you're going to unlock more flavors. Maybe you want to argue it's at 17 grams and a 58, but there is, because you would never in your life do a 4-gram V60. That's not nearly enough coffee. There is a a minimum amount. And my argument, based off the data and the tasting and the testing, is that it's a bit higher, and that your threshold is a lot higher. A lot of people complain about 40-gram V60s. It's because there's a limit as well, right? So anyway, that's my spiel. That's my my follow-up video. I hope I got to everything necessary. Thank you so much for joining me for this. It was a lot of good times. And yeah, I think we're good. All right, everyone. I hope that you brew something tasty today, or tomorrow, or the next day, or the next week, or every day of your life, regardless of how you brew it, regardless if it's 58 millimeters, 57 millimeters, 55 millimeters, 54 millimeters, 53 millimeters, 51 millimeters, 49 millimeters, I believe 48 is one as well, 47, 46, 40, any of those, 39. I hope you brew something tasty, regardless of bed depth, regardless of dose, regardless of brew method, pour over, V60, Ori. I don't give a crud. Just brew something tasty. Cheers.